Well, at 8:46 a.m., the world that we once knew was rearranged when American Airlines flight number 11 with 87 people aboard struck the North Tower between the 93rd and the 99th floor. I was on my way to the press conference when that plane hit. I was only about 1/8 of a mile away, and I could see the top of the North Tower fully engulfed in flames. And at that point, I realized either I go to the press conference or I run to the towers and try and help and do what I was supposed to do, because my original firehouse, where I spent the first 16 years of my career, was right across the street from the South Tower. And I'm thinking about all my friends who I spent the bulk of my career with. And so I immediately made my way to my old firehouse. I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I borrowed a set of firefighting, what we call bunker gear. That's the clothing we wear, a helmet, a jacket, boots, gloves, pants, from somebody off duty by the name of Tommy McNamara. And I ran out of the firehouse, and now it's 9:03, and the second jet, United Airlines Flight 175, came right over my head. And I watched it go through the South Tower. I was underneath it. And at that point, I realized we were under a terrorist attack. And the first words I said to everybody on the scene, I said, everybody on the top of the buildings are going to die, and these buildings are going to collapse. And people were looking at me like I was crazy, or they couldn't understand why I was saying that. Nobody knew that I studied structural engineering in college and used to go to the towers to watch them go up on a class trip. And I knew the design of those buildings and their construction techniques, and I was absolutely positive they couldn't withstand that amount of structural damage and that amount of fire. And 55 minutes later, as I was evacuating people, the building collapsed. I was underneath it, and I got buried under the building. They got me on a boat across the street from the World Trade Center complex. Boats came from New Jersey across the Hudson River, put me on the deck of the boat. They were holding my head closed, and I heard them saying that I was going to die if I didn't get to a hospital. And then 5 minutes later, the North Tower collapsed, and I got buried in the engine room of the boat a second time by the collapse of the second tower. Even 45 minutes later, they found me, and then they got the boat across the river, and I woke up. I was in an operating room, but I didn't know where I was. I was in New Jersey, and I woke up in an operating room. They're cutting all my clothes off of me, and we all write our name on the inside of our firefighting jacket. It's a Tommy McNamara. So I was admitted as Tommy McNamara, and Joe Torilla was declared dead. 344 firemen declared dead. One was found alive, and that was me. And Billy Blazes would come to represent in the evening 343 members that gave their lives. It's a very ironic story. They really wanted to do something to keep the memory alive. Of course it's been, an overstatement about never forgetting, always remembering, but we feared that after the 10th anniversary, this September 11th, that people really would start to forget, And so we were able to get a huge American flag, which you're going to see. We call it the Patriot flag. And it was flying at a huge auto park in Escondido, California, and they were replacing it because it was a little torn and tattered. And we said, hey, can we have the flag? They said, sure, what are you going to do with it? They said, well, I don't know, we're going to fly it at funerals for military servicemen when they come back from Iraq and Afghanistan. For police officer or firefighter dies in the line of duty, we'll fly the flag. But more importantly, we want to try and fly it at Ground Zero next September, on September 11th. They said, all right, here, take the flag, it's a little torn and tattered. We said, no problem, we cut off the last 4 feet that was torn. So the flag was 30 feet by 60, now it's 30 by 56. And the 4-foot piece is right over there, and that's the piece that travels, and everybody gets to sign that piece. And so now we came up with this great idea about flying it at Ground Zero this year. But that was a year ago. And we said, okay, we have 50 weeks to get the flag to Ground Zero, of which I was going to be the point person to make it happen. And then they said, okay, so what are we going to do in 50 weeks? So I'm like, well, there's 50 states, maybe we can fly it in each state in the next 50 weeks. So what started off as a silly idea turned into, a mission. And we called up FedEx. We said, hey, FedEx, we got this great idea. Can you help us out? Well, what do you want to do? We have a huge American flag. We're going to call it the Patriot flag. And it's in memory of all those that died on 9/11, in honor of all the men and women who ever gave up their lives in the military defending our freedom. And it's going to fly at Ground Zero next year on the 10th anniversary. But we want to fly it in every state. But we don't have the money to transport it. FedEx said, I'll tell you what, if you guys can find a way to fly it in every state, we'll transport it anywhere it needs to go. And so, as of yesterday, we've made the 50th state right here in South Dakota. It's flown as far north as North Pole on Christmas Eve in minus 20-degree weather, as far south as Hawaii, as hot as 115 degrees on September 13th of 2010 in Bullhead City, Arizona.
Welcome to the Buffalo Chip